A lot of spouses are worried whether they'll be living in poverty or not once their spouse needs long-term care. A lot of that depends on what kind of long-term care policy you have. So again, Medicare is your basic health care plan. It covers this along with your supplement, but then you are going to have other ways to pay for care if it goes outside of the basic thing. So kind of going through the stages of planning again, you do your estate planning documents, you get your general durable power of attorney, your health care power of attorney, especially in this sort of situation. That way, if your spouse can't make decisions, you can make those decisions on his or her behalf. Then you go to the asset preservation portion of this. If you haven't had time to do this and you're skipping right to here, we may not be able to preserve as much, but there are still things that you can preserve even if we jump right into crisis mode. If you come over to long-term care, you do have to figure out how to pay for that. One is the VA. It does have limits on what you can get, but it is very helpful if they are able to provide you with some money. The other one is private pay. Most people don't want a private pay because it can wipe you out really fast. If you're paying a couple $100 a month at home to up to $12,000 in a memory care unit, it can wipe a good size estate out super quick. So we try to stay away from that as much as possible. Long-term care policy, not everybody has them. Sometimes they have them and they don't work well, and sometimes they have them and they work really well. But that's a very individual sort of situation. Medicaid is another option that we look at pretty regularly in terms of preserving assets for the spouse that's not going into care. And that's probably the scariest one. You always hear, the state took my stuff and we had to spend down and they leaned the house. If you plan properly, there's actually a lot of stuff that you can preserve for the surviving spouse or for the non-applicant spouse and even the children. In order to get this, though, you have to look at it carefully. There's 3 tests. The first test is you have to have a need. Pretty easy test to pass when you're in that situation. The second one is they will look at income, but as much as possible, especially if the spouse is staying at home, they're going to try to make sure that the community spouse, the spouse at home, not on care, is getting some income from the person who's applying for Medicaid. The third test, and this is the one that freaks everybody out all the time, where the state took my stuff, right? They leaned my house. This is the assets. If you handle this properly, it actually can work out really well for a family. You are allowed to keep your house. If one person is applying for Medicaid, we will transfer that house into the name of the spouse, the non-applicant spouse, and then they can't put a lien on it. We'll also get rid of community property agreements so they can't attach to the whole thing. You're allowed to have a car, burial plans, life insurance. If there's a cash value, there's a limit, but you can still have it, and then a certain amount of money depending on when and where you apply. Also, there's certain things that you're not allowed to have. Maybe that family property down in Arizona or up in the woods, yeah, that fifth wheel, or that's my truck. That truck that you've got that you're there, and maybe you've got some extra money in the bank that you're not allowed to have. So what we're going to try to do maybe is sell these, because remember, you're not playing very much right now. You're not feeling good, so we don't necessarily need all these extra assets. But maybe you do want to keep the house, maybe you do want to keep the family property, and maybe you do want to keep some of this money. First thing we're going to try to do is shift stuff over to this side. Put some money in the house. Get a shower you can sit down in. Maybe you put a wheelchair ramp in so that you don't have to worry about that later. Things that keep you home longer. The other thing is go buy a new car. They cannot lien a car, right? So now you're going to go get a Subaru or the Honda or Toyota, something that holds its value. You're definitely going to die someday, so burial plan is not a bad idea. And then again, like I said, you're allowed to have a certain amount of money. These assets come into, well, we've still got stuff we're not allowed to have. We might be able to turn it into more income for the community spouse. There is a method and a tool to do that. Or we might be able to transfer it out of our estate, like to the kids or to a trust that's creditor protected as well. But that does require a lot of asset preservation planning. So in the end, if you can start over here and then work on this so that if and when this does come up, you're ready for it, that's even better. However, if you just happen that something came up, we didn't see it coming, a stroke or something like this, and you just land here and surprise, we can work through this pretty quickly to help protect the spouse and the assets that will help them to continue to live a very comfortable life in some cases. It'll be a little bit different because life will be different at that point in time, but there's definitely methods to protect assets for that spouse.